Hello everyone, my name is Alessandro Ravagnolo and I will be your host today. I will be joined by my colleague Caroline Gabriel. Say hi, Caroline.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining.
And Charles Murray.
Hi, Ali.
Hopefully it's going to be the three of us, maybe a couple of cats that will show up in the background at some point. Let's see. So this is not going to be a show for dog lovers, I presume. We're going to spend something like 10-15 minutes together now and talking of various topics. I hope that you're going to enjoy spending time with us and during your coffee break or your commute or whatever you're doing at the moment. The topic we're going to cover today, of course, we need to touch on AI, which means, as you know, artificial intelligence, but we're going to cover it from a specific angle. And this angle is what does it mean for investment from communication service providers and what is the impact on critical infrastructure. So telcos have big decision to take, right? And big decisions that might impact the strategy going forward and what telcos wants to be going forward. So this is part of our bigger set of prediction for 2026 that we're publishing as Analyse Maison. All these predictions are published on our website, and a link to our website will be available in the show notes. But without further ado, Caroline, do you want to provide a bit of an introductions and the punchline of your prediction for 2026?
Sure, thanks Ali. Yes, I'm Caroline Gabriel. I'm a research partner at Analyse Maison. I head up all the research work that we do on networks and cloud, so really focusing on communications infrastructure across the telecom value chain. And in that context, we are predicting that telecom operators are going to battle for position in the infrastructure value chain as their infrastructure capex becomes dwarfed by the spending on AI, a lot of which will be coming from other parties. So they're facing a key decision point in 2026 about what their future investment strategy should be.
That's great. Charles, what are you covering today?
So following the merger between Vodafone and Three in the UK, the 4-3 debate is yet again back on the table. So we're going to discuss the impact and who's potentially likely to go from a 4 mobile operator market to a 3 mobile operator market in Europe.
Thank you. Sizzling hot topics today,
Indeed.
as you can see. So, Caroline, let me start with a question for you, right? So, artificial intelligence means investments, and we're talking about a level of capex we have never really seen before, right? Or that we haven't seen since the rail industries started deploying critical infrastructures that is available every day to all of us, for example. And this investment touches on softwares, applications, chipsets, but as mentioned before, also all the enabling infrastructures that is needed to run all artificial intelligence, from the real estate, so the data centers and all the powers. There's, of course, a question on what does it mean for different players across different industries? What are the opportunities for them? And this is particularly important for telcos. What are the opportunities, therefore, that telco can harness from AI, right? And what is basically the right to play? And how can they marry these AI strategies they're developing with the traditional role as connectivity businesses?
Yeah, exactly, Ali. And I think you've got to the heart of the matter with that last sentence. It's a question of balance and marrying a forward-looking strategy and with a lot of AI in it, with carrying on the traditional business, which of course for the vast majority of operators is 90+% of their revenue. So there's a lot at stake on either side. I don't think there's a right answer. As I said in my intro, inevitably telcos a sort of share of the investment, the capex, and therefore the opportunity in communications infrastructure is going to decline as a percentage, although obviously, as you say, the total pie is getting huge at the minute because of AI and other factors. So we're sort of looking at, at some points, telcos have been responsible for over 40% of investment in public communication infrastructure. We're looking at that falling below a third in 2026 and then continuing to fall because other players are joining the market and because the whole focus of investment obviously is shifting towards the data centers, GPUs, all these big ticket items that support AI. So as I say, I don't think there's a right answer for telcos, but they have to really make key decisions in 2026. This market is changing quickly, growing quickly, and they need to understand where their opportunities may be. Some telcos, and I think we had a bit of a phase of it a few years ago, of telcos moving beyond their own networks that are core to their business, their access networks, in some cases their transport networks, the sites on which that infrastructure sits, broadening from that into investing in cloud, in their own data centers, edge compute and so on. With AI, that becomes a much, much bigger bet. Some operators can choose to do that. They can accept that they want to play in the broader communication infrastructure value chain, but they will obviously have to accept that this is a very big spending. They will have a smaller share of the total pie compared to what they are traditionally used to. And that means they'll have to work with different types of partners, different co-investors and so on. So for many telcos, we believe they will back away from that, but they still have choices to make. So if they're focusing on classic telco network infrastructure, they still need to decide, what do I need to own and where am I happy to use someone else's infrastructure or to share the investment. So some may focus down just on their access networks, expanding those, making sure those are good quality. Others may look, they think they can't do the whole infrastructure play, but will look at investing heavily in certain types of infrastructure that will support the AI expansion. Data center interconnect is a good example of that, or edge-based data centers, where there isn't quite the same level of investment in GPU and so on. And others will choose to defocus on infrastructure completely. They'll go heavily towards sharing even access infrastructure, or buying it on a wholesale basis, or even delayering completely and spinning off the infrastructure business. We've seen, of course, quite a lot of companies doing that in the passive infrastructure area, particularly with mobile towers. Starting to see a few companies thinking about that with regard to the active networks as well. At that point, of course, that's the exact opposite position to these few companies that we think will become reasonably significant players in the broad AI-driven comms infrastructure game.
So does it mean that in 2026 we're going to see a split between a clear split between the telcos who decide to play into the artificial intelligence wars and those who don't, and the infrastructure strategy, the way they're set up, need to follow accordingly?
Absolutely.
And the way I'm very sympathetic with telco because and the management, because they're under a lot of pressure to improve their returns on the capital invested, the pressure from the markets and their shareholder. And therefore, I totally understand why they're facing the decision. Can we find new avenue of growth thanks to AI? And do we want to play in that market? But whether they play or not is going to be part of their decisions that they need to take in 2026. But then there is also the question is, if they were to decide not to play in the AI infrastructure game, what are they going to do, right? What are they going to invest on?
Yes, and this is a key question for those companies, and we think it'll be a majority of telcos who don't decide to play in AI infrastructure, but are still looking to invest money. In some ways, this may free up investment dollars for them to look elsewhere. So they can still play in AI. Some operators are looking, for instance, to invest heavily in building software platforms that will support large numbers of applicants, maybe help them move more heavily into enterprise services. Or they may just invest in AI within their own networks to improve responsiveness, quality, and so on. But there are other areas that aren't directly connected to AI where they may invest. Some of them, we have to remember how many telcos really will remain focused on business as usual. We tend to look at the telcos that are trying to have a big expansion in enterprise or in a cloud, but most telcos are just looking to try to preserve the cash and the margin and the revenue that they get from their core business. And in that area, we think those operators will be looking where they are investing. That will all be about the quality of the network, the marketing, good orchestration systems and so on, so that they provide the best services. But there's also another category of operators who are not so convinced that they can see a lot of growth in core telecom business. And if they are freeing up investment dollars, will be looking to move into adjacent businesses and actually acquire companies. We've seen telcos acquiring companies in utility area, energy utilities, in financial services and so on. And depending on the market they're in, that can provide some new opportunities.
Right, but we need to face the elephant in the room here, right, and address it. Charles, we need to talk about size and scale to do all of these. We
Yeah,
all
and
know.
indeed, following up from Caroline's sort of comments on deciding where to invest or not, obviously continue to invest in radio and core networks is a challenge, particularly in the 5G era where the expense is so great, and thus, we're seeing a lot of commercial pressure on rollout, particularly in Europe. How far can it go? The natural way to improve both the quality but also make a higher return is on that investment is to consolidate, less infrastructure duplication, and thus can produce a better outcome. And it's very clear from the sort of Vodafone 3 merger in the UK, their rationale and their strategy towards the competition authority, and in particular what they then committed to, was a significant investment in networks, the tune of about 11 billion over 8 years, so a significant sort of increase. And that would produce both a much larger network on Vodafone 3, but also force the other remaining two competitors in the market to compete. So it's a sort of question of, actually there's going to be some efficiency, some synergies from that merger, but there's also going to be some investment as well. And I think that that's a sort of very much the strategy. If if you're looking to try and do a 4-3 merger, that strategy is probably the winning one.
So basically, we're talking about consolidation to achieve scale, efficiency, and free up capital. However, on the other hand, remedies may mean even more investments in the traditional business in the networks, so that might limit the amount of capital available.
Indeed, and I think it's all as Caroline said. A balance between what's additional investment versus what the synergies that can be driven out from any particular merger. So I think invariably a bigger, larger network will provide future synergies and be certainly more value enhancing for the UK PLC and other markets where that consolidation happens. So from that perspective, I can see there's going to be an awful lot of interest in particular markets like France, Italy, Spain, and Germany, which are all now 4 operator markets, where there's going to be, there is rationale for these synergies. And we think that likely next year, France and Italy may get some deals, certainly initially over the line in terms of getting agreement between shareholders. And then obviously the real question is, can they get it to the competition authority and the commission?
Which is your bet? Which market is your bet?
You read the prediction, but in reality, we think that France is probably the most likely, closely followed by Italy. Their combinations of both of them, which are very good. Obviously, there's already been an offer for SFR by the other 3 players in France. That was rejected, but we suggest that the shareholding situation at SFR is in such a position that the revised offer may well come, and I think there'll be a lot of pressure to accept it from the debt holders and bondholders in Altice. So we think that's the likely market. Italy as well, and obviously link up between Windtray and Iliad in that market. And from that perspective, we think that could well happen. It's obviously take quite a lot of discussion to get over the line, but that's an obvious tie-up as well.
Right? No, thank you. I agree with all of that. Clearly, it's quite striking if you look at the valuation size of telco operators, especially in Europe, where that is a market is quite fragmented against the big juggernauts that operate in the cloud space or in the AI space. Just look at the valuations that OpenAI is seeking for its potential future IPO compared to the size of the business that have been around in the communication sector for decades, right? It's quite striking. So it's just about mobile, or can we think about also international consolidation to achieve scale?
I think in terms of the other sectors, I think there's clearly going to be some further movement in the fixed world. Proliferation of fiber operators with fiber deployments is going to mean that there's going to be continued consolidation in that space. I think internationally, it's hard to see. There's obviously been strategies to do that historically and try and get sort of European footprints and try and offer European pricing, etc., to corporates. But there's huge tensions between the group and corporate versus the local opcos, and it's not helped by the fact that each local opco has to have a significant amount of infrastructure and capability, and the language barriers means that it's very difficult to do so in the consumer level from both a market positioning and a regulation perspective. So an operation perspective. So that means that you're not going to see ever, I don't think, the sort of type of players that you see in the US, the three big national players. There's not going to be pan-European players in the same way in Europe.
Caroline, what is just to wrap up the podcast today, what is your final recommendation for telcos in 2026?
That they need to address these decision points urgently. They can't afford not to have a strategy for investment. We've laid out there are different strategies and all of them may be valid, but they then lead to big decisions about the structure of the company and what their future directions may be. So yes, they can spend a great deal of money and have a role of some importance in this sort of AI-driven infrastructure value chain, or they can decide not to focus on other things. But what they can't do is sort of wait and see or strike a middle ground. They'll just end up wasting capex and losing the position that they currently have in the overall value chain.
You cannot have both.
Exactly.
Yes.
Totally agree. It's all about focus. It's all about focus now with the capital budgets they've got.
And what's your recommendation for 2026?
My recommendation, so if you're looking to consolidate, looking to do a merger, then the strategy to get through the competition authority has to be front and center to every decision that's made in terms of the way the process is set up, shareholding structures, strategies for the operators and the brands going forward, consolidation of the infrastructure. Everything is fundamental to getting it through. It is not a regulation work stream that's separate to the business case and the technical work. It is absolutely fundamental to it, and that should be the guiding principle for any process, any merger process that operators are looking to do.
Thank you. These are big topics. Let's be honest. We could go on forever, the three of us, discussing them. In the past, actually, we have done it. But it's time to say goodbye to our audience. Thank you very much for staying with us. If you want to hear more about these predictions, look at the show notes. You're going to find a link that where you can consume more content from Caroline and Charles. And you're going to see a wealth of additional content and material on our website and on our channels. So please do click and subscribe on our channels, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Have a very good day.